Hi, and welcome to What's the Worst That Can Happen. I'm your host, Abby Whitaker, and today I have a beautiful guest on, Em K Burton. She is the amazing founder of Inspired by You events and inspired.haus, and also inspired.haus.
That's me.
With a HAUS. I am going to pass it over for her to do a little bit of an introduction of herself because, as we know, I'm never going to do it as much justice as she is. So here she is.
Oh, thanks, Abby Whitaker. I'm so excited to be here. I guess I've just told you a little bit about my businesses. I started Inspired by You events only a year ago. Can you believe it? And I'm pretty excited to be going into this year focusing on a lot more of my goal with that business, which is a community-based events, and focusing on, working with a lot of people within the community to bring really value-led events to the Sunshine Coast. Mm-hmm. Inspire and Assist has become my, not really my 9 to 5, but it's Inspired by You event started as a bit of a side hustle. It did end up becoming its own beast and I absolutely love it. But yeah, Inspire and Assist is now my new platform to do what I know, what I love, really fortunately with the people that I love. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of my two big babies. And inspired.haus is really just a portfolio of the incredible curations that I get to put together through both of those platforms.
Amazing. And just so everyone knows, Em is actually my EA. So she is sometimes in the background of my podcast content.
Going, hey, Abby.
Questions. And she has been absolute lifesaver, game changer, cheerleader, all the good things, light, sunshine, brightness, since she has come into my world. And I'm so happy to have her on the podcast and to just to know her.
Aww, thanks, Ab.
That's okay.
That makes me a bit emotional.
Oh, stop it.
Aww, I feel really lucky to know you too. And it's so crazy to think about just, where our friendship began. Who would have thought when we sat there getting our hair done together next to each other, that, months later I'd be asking you if you wanted to be a part of an event, and here we would be, less than a year later, and I feel like you're an extended part of my family and community here.
No, so special.
So special.
I want to dig a little bit into your businesses. So Inspired by You events, you explained a little bit more about that. Inspired and Assist. Sorry.
You'll get there.
I need to be assisted on how to say that word properly. Can you tell me a little bit about that business?
Yeah. Well, basically, as you know, my background has been in leadership for like 14 years. And it's actually a really full circle moment when we think about it, because essentially the concept started when you asked me if I wanted to be your EA, like all those months ago. And
just for context, I thought me and Em did an event together. I saw how she worked. I thought she was amazing. And I said to her, like, if you ever want like more regular work, would you ever consider like VA, EA kind of role? Because I think that you do a great job. Context.
Yeah. And at the time I was like completely overwhelmed with that idea. I was like, oh my God, like I've just started getting events where it needs to be. And then it was a few months later, somebody else that I met through doing the same thing, another event, asked me the same thing. And I kind of just looked at it as an opportunity to step back and go, well, what could it be? Rather than hearing those words and thinking of what I've known that role or that position to be. Instead, I went, well, what if this is something that I do on my own terms, in my own way, that really can bring value to future clients, but still work around the way I want to live my life at the moment, which is definitely still not going back to work at a full-time capacity. I'm still very much in mum mode. So yeah, Inspire and Assist was kind of born from those conversations. Today we really are, like Actually, I have my new team member starting. So it is,
So
I get to say we and mean a we now, but starting and practicing mostly in the EA space. So helping small businesses, mid-tier businesses, kind of working on projects, ideas, working on kind of marketing themselves out in the world, just kind of kicking off their goals and ticking off the list. For you, it's a little bit different because you've had quite a good team built around you. So I get to practice and do stuff like this, which is really fun. But for the majority, it's really just about helping people execute their goals and their ideas that they know they want to achieve. Maybe they don't know how, maybe they don't have the time, maybe they're still very much in their business and not able to work on it. That's where I get to come in and help. Look at it from both strategy versus also just actually what does the execution need to look like to get us there. So that's kind of what I'm focusing mostly on at the moment. Aside from that, we offer project management, which would be a very similar thing on a shorter time frame turnaround to help that client if it was one specific project. And the goal is to eventually start to mentor in the leadership space and, support businesses across the Sunshine Coast by helping them with their teams, helping them run micro conferences. That's kind of the long-term goal for where I'd love to be one day.
Amazing. And can you tell me a little bit more about with Inspire and Assist? You launched and literally closed your books within a week, which is awesome.
It was so wild, yeah.
What was your strategy behind that? Was that the plan? Was that the strategy? Were you okay, I've got space for this many clients.
I took an extra person on because I just was wow, which will also be a great opportunity to talk about that in a minute because did I do it too quickly? Possibly. I was just, I guess, really lucky to have been able to, through the events community, and I would say for anybody that's starting a business, get out in the community, meet, mingle, connect with people, talk about, what you're doing and what you're aiming to do. I think through having the opportunity and privilege to be at so many events and meeting so many people allowed me to grow and foster relationships quite quickly with people, which then, through getting to know a few people and then yourself, my other clients sort of asking me to help and then word of mouth, really. I think that's been the biggest thing so far. It also leaves me, to keep it real in a vulnerable position to think about, if and when our time starts to run out, because these kinds of roles, depending on the client, won't be a forever thing. Makes me think about, what do I need to do now to make sure that we're continuing to really foster, nurture our existing clients while continuing to attract future potential clients as well, which totally navigating every day. Absolutely not an expert at it. It's kind of where we're starting to think towards and think to for the future as well.
Yeah. I guess the service-based industry can be tough in the way that it is ever evolving.
Yeah.
Not evolving, but there's always people who, for whatever reason, need to leave, and then there's always this thing where you're needing to recruit and market and get new people. And I think something I caught that you said, which I think is a really important tip for people in business, and I even do this, I even stand by this with my studios and things, is that it's one thing getting people in your door, but it's another thing to actually be so confident with your product that you just know that referrals are going to be strong and that retention is going to be strong as well. Of course, there's always going to be things that happen in people's worlds that potentially they can't continue, but you don't want I think some of the best amazing people I've worked with are people who you sign on with them for 3 months and then you don't even need to be asked if you want to continue on because it's just a given. Whereas there's people where you kind of counting the days till the end because they've sold you this dream. But
and you're like,
okay,
where are you now? Yeah.
Exactly. You've sold them this dream, but then they're not actually taking care of their clients. They're too busy trying to get more or whatever. And it's like...
And I think that's also like some people get into that position purely because they are so focused on the result, the KPI, the metric, but then also some people just end up in a position where they accidentally grow too fast. And that is something that I think people only realize when they're out of it, that they go, oh, like I just was so caught up in it all. And then now look, shit, like I'm actually... I probably haven't done my best with everybody. I'm pretty lucky, I suppose. I'm my harshest critic. Like I know what I can provide, what I've been able to achieve. So for me, it's like if I'm not giving everybody my absolute best, and to be honest, like I'm learning every single day, I'm realizing that first month needs to feel just like a get to know you stage. I can't just go in there like a bull to a flag and do everything all at once and really wow the socks off everyone, because it actually takes time to build momentum and get really clear on the goals. But I do think it can quite easily, like if you're not going into it thinking about how to really provide value and you're just thinking about it from a perspective of I want to grow, I want to be the biggest and the best, you can end up tarnishing your reputation in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. I think that in this day and age with like so many businesses and services available, people often only give you a chance once. And I've always been like big on this as well in my businesses. It's like making sure that the product is so strong and that like first impressions count, because the thing is that if you kind of like go too fast and then someone has a bad experience with you, even if you like rectify that and fix that,
it's done.
They're probably not going to come back in 3 years' time. Like it's going to take a lot for them to like give you a shot again if they've already felt let down. So I think that it's like a really important thing in business.
It's about trust, right? Like I'll use a leadership analogy, but like when you start into a new relationship, you only start off with a few, imagine a glass of water, a few drops of water in that. That's your get to know you. The more that you put into that relationship, the faster that cup fills up. If you make a mistake and that cup is already full because you put so much into it, that person's not going to notice a few, sips or drops gone. Whereas if you're starting out that new relationship and you're pulling water out because you're stretched or at capacity, you're going to end up with an empty glass, or that water's not going to increase. It's tarnishing that that relationship. You're never going to get that glass back full again because you've damaged it too early in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
We're human, and I think in any industry that somebody's going to make mistakes, but it's about building that trust from the get-go, really putting all of the water into the cup, and then it's okay if you just take a few drops out every now and then if you've made a mistake, because we are human. But if you're not filling it up from the beginning, that's
definitely. And I think just on making errors and mistakes, the way that we react to our mistakes and the accountability that we take is actually so important. I remember last year there was a big print mistake with one of my businesses, which was down to a VA that I had, and there was not even any question asked by me in terms of like how it would be rectified. Like it was quite a big chunk of money. There was a deadline that needed to be met. So it was a little bit of a stressful situation, and she took full accountability, took the money off her invoice, and that was kind of that. And that like literally made me respect her so much and feel so like she had so much integrity, and the way she had dealt with it was so good. And that's like a situation where, we are human and we do make mistakes, but like
own it. And do all the good work first, so that's the thing that people remember. If she had done that in the very beginning, it still would have had even though she acted in accordance, it still would have had a little bit of a bad taste.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, you know, potentially that was a really good person who made a pretty simple or big mistake, but nonetheless took accountability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think it's also important in certain situations, like when you are working with someone who's got a business and they do make a mistake, like I think it's important to also communicate with them the mistake, because I think that sometimes people go, oh, they just like didn't do a good job. So like, or that mistake happened. So I'm just going to leave them. Whereas
we need to give the feedback.
it's like, give the feedback, give them the chance to rectify, give them the chance to do the right thing or react in a way that makes you feel good and safe.
Yeah.
And that's like, I think that that's just really important. Anyway, I feel like we digressed. I love it though. I love that conversation. So you mentioned before, you're like, oh, we'll come back to it. But you mentioned just like on that train of thought, you mentioned about like, do you feel like you grew too fast with Inspire and Assist?
I feel really comfortable now with where I'm at with my clients. I think the biggest thing was the initial jump and induction process, essentially like what I'm learning, because it's so new. And that first sort of 4-week period, I think really like I need to give myself some grace as well, because there's no point me trying to operate with a messed up nervous system, just trying to get everything perfect all the time. I think I would now, upon reflection, only sort of like bring in one client and one new client at once. I went from one, and then the following week, you know, I've been working with that one client for a few months, but then the following week inducting all of those new clients into the business, whilst being the first time I was really, you know, back at my JOB. So
yeah.
I think like it's still the right headcount. I'd just do it differently if I were to do it again. I don't think I would have ever gone into it going, I can handle more than that. I was very, very much aware and, you know, in a position, like I said, I actually was only going to bring on 2 more clients and ended up bringing on 3. And I sat with that and I really mapped it out logistically and was like, can I do this? Is this overcommitting? Will I? And I feel good about that decision. That decision wasn't the wrong decision, but maybe how I tackled it.
Maybe going from 1 to 4 in 1 week.
Big jump. Big jump. I don't even think it was more so for you guys, but for me.
Yeah. I remember you mentioning like just because I think when you work with a new business, like even with me with like my mentoring stuff, when I work with a new business, it takes like energy and a thought process outside of the time that you spend with that client to understand that person's business, to be able to like put yourself in their shoes, to understand what they want. And like, I think that the way you work is like all your clients are quite different and their needs are quite different. So it's like, not only are you learning new tools and like, you know, business models and stuff, but you're also trying to learn like what their values are, what they like, what their goals actually are, how you can best service them. And I think that I can.
And how they see what the help looks like.
Yeah, managing expectations is such a huge thing.
Yeah, for some people it's like the conversation means the most. For others it's like I need that task done yesterday. So even understanding that, you know, like and this is the beauty of reflection, is I now, if and when the time comes that, you know, I move on and I have a different client join me, that whole process gets to be remodeled, and not in a way that's like I just constantly want to change it. It's just like refining it, learning what can make a better practice for them. I want them, for however long somebody spends with me, I want them to always look back at that time fondly. If it's 3 months, it's 3 months. But like that's so important to me that they had a good 3 months, that if they needed to learn something, got to learn something. If they needed to execute something, they got to execute that something. And I also acknowledge that like it will look different. Some people want a service for the long term. You know, the goals keep changing, so therefore the work keeps coming. And for some people it might be more about like actually teaching them how to do and work through the workload at a more productive pace or operating rhythm, so that then they have the skills now to feel a bit more equipped to handle those things and get it done themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I love it.